Hi everybody, thanks for tuning in with me again. I thought that for this lesson I would teach you how to make those geometric shape mandalas that we usually make as the very last project of the school year. So it's a little bit early, but it is a student favorite, so I thought I would go ahead and get started on it now. For kindergartners, this is going to be new information, but for 1st through 5th grade, like I said, this is what we finish out the year with, and it's a lot of fun. So this will be a review for you, and you'll probably see some familiar pieces of artwork that you've seen when I've given the demonstration in my class before. So for this project, you're just going to need a pencil. A Sharpie is helpful. Some kind of coloring utensils would be great. And then you'll need some pattern blocks, which I have right here. There are 6 different shapes in the set, and I realize most of you probably don't have these at home, so I went ahead and attached a file to this assignment so that you can print them out and cut them out and make your own templates. What might be a good idea is if after you cut them out on paper that you've printed, if you want to retrace them onto something a little more sturdy like cardstock, even an old greeting card if you can't find actual cardstock is perfect, or cardboard is great too. If you retrace them onto a sturdier surface like that and then cut them out, you'll have a nice little sturdy set that you can reuse over and over. Or if you find that you really like these and would like to have your own set and you'd like to use them for other projects as well, they're pretty cheap on Amazon. You can find sets. I found one for under $9. So if that interests you, feel free. So the idea here is that we are working on understanding symmetry. And in more than one way. If you notice, if I split my artwork in half this way, it's the same on both sides. If I split it this way, it's the same on both sides. If I split it diagonally, it's the same on both sides, and same with this way. It's almost like pie slices. So that pertains to a type of symmetry or balance called radial symmetry, which is where something is symmetrical from a central point radiating in an outward direction. So that applies to this particular example, but not to all the examples that we'll make. Some of them just have classic symmetry, and that's okay too. So there's a few ways that you can approach this. In this case, I don't have any what's called negative space in between my shapes. All of my shapes fit together like puzzle pieces, leaving no extra space behind, which is great if you're looking for something that is very dense or concentrated as far as color and shape. And I'll teach you how to make some areas look kind of three-dimensional if you're interested in that as well. Another way to approach this might be to include negative space, meaning that not all of your shapes touch each other. And in this case, I did kind of a whole series that looks like snowflakes where I added some extra designs to enhance that look. But I wanted you to notice mostly here that there are in-between spaces where I have not tried to fit shapes everywhere. So that's an okay way to approach this assignment as well. Since I'm showing you those, I have a whole lot of examples of these. Kind of a snowflake edition. You can see I haven't colored most of these yet. And it's different depending on what shape you start with in the center. That's going to really dictate how the rest of your drawing ends up looking. So I started here in the center with a triangle. So that means everything else that I do, I'm ultimately going to do 3 times. If you start with a hexagon in the center, then you'll be doing everything else 6 times. So that changes things. Here's another one with a triangle in the middle. Here's some more finished examples. This one has no negative space as well. All the shapes fit together like puzzle pieces. Again, I started with a hexagon in the center, so everything I did after that had to be done 6 times. Here's one that starts with a square. So everything I've done after that initial square in the center, it's done 4 times. There's another square. There's a hexagon. This little guy got stuck underneath another hexagon, and I've got a final hexagon example to show you as well. So let's get started. Okay, after you get a design sketched out in pencil, the next thing you're going to want to do is trace it in Sharpie. Okay, so now that I've got it outlined in Sharpie, we're ready for some next steps. Before I move on, I wanted to mention something important to you. After you've traced your center shape here, when you go to trace your next shapes, it helps if you rotate your shape around that original middle shape each time when you go to trace it, so that you are not accidentally picking it up and flipping it in a direction that would be incorrect, and that would ruin your symmetry. So instead, what I like to tell students is if you pretend that the outside of your shape is like a racetrack, and you pretend that your next shape that you're tracing is like the car on the racetrack, and you want it to hug closely around the edges as you're tracing, and it's always driving in the same direction. You never pick it up and flip it. If that makes sense, I'm hoping that's a helpful tip. So from here out, what I might want to do is take an eraser and neaten up my drawing. Students know that that's something we always do in class, is keep our drawing nice and neat and hide our pencil marks. After I've done that, I can decide to start coloring now, or I can decide to add some extra embellishments or pattern work first. More is more in my mind, so that's what I'm going to go ahead and do. The use of stripes can really help to create some three-dimensional qualities to your artwork if you're interested in that. So for example, maybe I will do 2 lines in this shape, and then what I can do is connect those 2 lines in this shape and extend them through this 3rd shape. See how now, because I've gone with the parallel lines on the shapes that already exist, I've kind of created this 3-dimensional pattern. So now I'm going to rotate this and do the same thing here. And of course, since I started with a square in the center, I know that everything I do from there on out is going to be done 4 times. So if I want to check myself to make sure I'm not making any mistakes, I can kind of count in my head as I go. And I can continue with this 3-dimensional effect I'm trying to create in other areas, or I can decide, just to stray from that and do anything else that I want design-wise. Something that's kind of fun sometimes is to create a dotted line along one edge. If I do it here, I know I'm going to have to do it 4 more times, so I'm going to rotate. And then I'm going to rotate again. And I'm just going to continue adding patterns and design work as I see fit. Now that I'm happy with how the design work looks on my finished design, I'm going to start choosing colors and decide on the material I want to color with. So of course you can color with crayons or colored pencils or markers. You can use pastels. You could even use paint if you prefer. Or if you want to mix it up, you could use a variety of materials, which is nice too. Things I want you to consider before coloring are color families or color schemes. So we talk a lot about the color wheel in class, and I would love it if you would think it through just a little bit about whether or not maybe you want to stick to just warm colors or maybe just cool colors. Maybe you want to use just primaries or just secondaries. Maybe you want to use analogous colors, which are colors that are next to each other on the color wheel. So I'm going to go ahead and include a file to a color wheel in this assignment so that you can reference that if that's helpful for you when you're choosing colors. The color choices are really your choice, and there's no wrong answer, but like I always say in art class, a good artist is always thinking a few steps ahead and making conscious decisions rather than just putting colors on the paper without any thought whatsoever. So again, we want to make sure that we're sticking to our symmetry, not only with our shapes, but also with our colors. So let's say I choose to color this shape here with red. That would mean I'm going to make sure I color all 4 of the matching shapes with red. If I'm going to color this stripe here with orange, I will make sure that I color this stripe, and this stripe with orange to maintain my symmetry that I've created with my design work. Okay, and my geometric mandala is complete. So I've used only geometric shapes to create this mandala. Geometric shapes are shapes that you can name, math shapes. My mandala has what's called radial symmetry, meaning that not only is it symmetrical one side to the other, but it is symmetrical from a central point, radiating in an outward direction. You could also call that radial balance. I haven't used the use of negative space in my mandala because all of my shapes fit into one another. I could also have extended, or I could do it now, extend this mandala to completely cover my entire page if I wanted to. Usually a good rule of thumb is to make sure that it at least touches the short edges of your paper. And then I neglected to mention at the beginning of this that a mandala is a circular type type piece of artwork. And mine isn't circular per se, but it does still have radial symmetry. Mandala is a Sanskrit word for circle, but it really pertains to kind of a artistic rendering of a circle. So circle or a mandala could be seen in architecture or nature or a variety of different types of art, of course. My second graders were working on mandalas when we left for spring break. So if you are working with a second grader at home, ask them for some extra tips of the trade. I hope you had fun today. I'm so glad you decided to join me again, and I'm still here at home missing you all, so hopefully we'll be together soon. Bye-bye.